Well, today is June 20th, 2024, and this is William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and I'm joined and will be joined by my wife, Dania Michael.
Hi, everybody.
And the title of our podcast that we'll be starting is going to be very simple, just classical Catholic education, and that's going to be the focus of a regular collection of talks. And what I would like to do tonight, just to get this started, is talk about what the goal of this podcast is going to be as it develops, what we hope to talk about and accomplish, who we intend to help with these talks, and talk a little bit about our situation in life right now and why it's a good time for us to do this. So, as you may or not know, we're the owners of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. We've been working in Christian education as classicists for over 25 years now. And we're in an interesting situation in life where we've been a homeschooling family. We're still in the midst of homeschooling, but we're also coming to a point where we're finishing with homeschooling. We've got kids going to college. We've got other kids finishing college, starting careers, just so many things going on. And we're in an interesting position where we're already finished with homeschooling and yet at the same time still involved in it. So we've got some help from hindsight, but we're also at work presently and working with other families in homeschooling. So it's just an interesting place for us to be. Our oldest is 24 years old. He just graduated and is off at officer training in the military. And our youngest is 9 years old, and she's still at home with us, getting through elementary studies. So we've got a wide range of activity in our life, a wide range of experience that we've gained through the years, lots of resources to share, and we're quite busy with lots of interesting stuff ourselves that we hope to talk about and share with everyone who joins us. As for us, with the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, big news this year is that it's being accredited. So we're entering into a new phase of life in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy with lots of new things developing and opening up. We're also engaged in our own studies as adults now that our kids are finishing with homeschooling, getting into college, and with the military. They're taking care of their own tuition and expenses, which has left us with money that we never thought we would have, that we've been able to use to invest in our own continued education. So I'm currently working in a master's degree program at Harvard, studying history and liberal arts, and my wife is studying at Catholic University of America in a Master of Catechesis program. That's the name of it, right? Master of Catechesis program. And so she's got some great studies that she's engaged in each week. I've got lots of interesting stuff that I'm engaged in each week, and there's just tons of material to share, to talk about, and we'd like to do that because I think we can offer some pretty interesting content. Daniel, why don't you take a few minutes and just talk about courses you're currently studying and what the subjects of those courses has been.
Okay, this summer I'm taking 2 courses. So I have Foundations of Catechesis and Christ in the Moral Life. So Foundations of Catechesis is actually a class where we're learning about different types of teaching methods that have been used in the Catholic Church throughout history, and so it's been very applicable to how how we've taught our kids and how we're using the Classical Liberal Arts Academy as far as we use Baltimore Catechism, and we're training through Scripture. So it's the readings have been wonderful. We're starting with a Directory for Catechesis that the bishops published in 2020, and it basically teaches, it takes the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and it gives directions of how to use that for the priests, for catechists, for directors of catechesis programs, and things like that. So it's very, very practical, and it's very helpful. And then we're doing different readings, like from St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, things like that, St. Cyril of Jerusalem, and learning about catechetical methods all throughout the church history.
So what's your goal? What's, you're 49 years old, a mother of 10 children. What's your goal in these studies? A master's degree program at Catholic University. Why bother? What's the goal?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's been 26 years since I graduated college. And in that time, I've had 10 children. I've spent how many years? Probably 12 years nursing, how many years pregnant. And so I just spent so much time just taking care of the children and educating them that I feel like, first of all, I felt a little bit behind. My mind was a little mushy. Like you always encouraged me to write and to express my thoughts and to help people. And I feel like I can't. I feel like I don't have the mental capacity to do that. I try and it just wasn't working. And so I felt like I needed to be challenged, first of all, personally, in order to be able to help other people. I need to be challenged and have to submit to authority over me, to be told you have to read this, you have to write this assignment, and to have those due dates and that pressure on me to be forced to think and also be helped, having professors who help and stimulate me, and and other students who I work with, that has really helped. So I wanted to do that, first of all, personal, be able to challenge myself and be able to help other people by first learning myself and digest these things, and then be able to teach others. And then second, with the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we've been teaching through the Baltimore Catechism, through Scripture, and then the Summa, we're going to be, and then so stuff like that. And I want to learn how to catechize children in our program well. I want to understand what the church has done throughout the ages, what they've said is good, what they said is bad, and then learn how to catechize our children well. Personally, like when we became Catholics, I was 31 years old when I became a Catholic. I already had 5 children. I was fully a Protestant. And coming into the church at that age, I was raising my children not having a Catholic mindset, not understanding the Catholic faith, like practically. Maybe I could like memorize things and learn things, but practically I didn't know how to live it out. So part of it, I want to understand how to catechize children well. I want to help I want to help you guys, help families to understand how to teach our children the faith. And so that's part of the reason. And then I also, being an accredited program now, I want us to have the best catechism program we could possibly have. So through this Master of Catechesis program at Catholic University of America, one of the 6 credit hours I have to do, I actually have to do a project. And as I was enrolling and talking to the professors, I presented doing a catechesis project with the CLAA, with the help of the CUA professors at the same time. And I was told that that's perfect. That's exactly what they want to do. So one of my projects, my 6 credit project, will actually be developing a full catechesis program, starting with little children all the way up with the CLAA. So that's going to be like a whole year worth.
Yeah, and why don't you explain also, why Catholic University? There's so many options. There's so many different programs you could have gotten into. Why did you choose to study with Catholic University?
Okay, there's a few different reasons. Number one, it's the Bishop's University. It was actually developed by the Vatican actually sent representatives here to the United States and wanted to develop a university. So it's from the Pope originally, and then it's the Bishop's University here in Washington, D.C. So I wanted to be, first of all, I want to be in touch with what the bishops want to do and what the Catholic Church is doing, with what the the Pope is doing as far as catechesis. I want it to come directly top down and, infiltrate into the CLA. So that's the first thing. That's the most important. Second, practical, which is a practical thing. This program worked out perfectly where it's a one course, a 3-credit course in the spring, 3-credit course in the fall, and in the summer, 2 6-credit courses, and then a stay. You have to stay on the campus for what we're going to be doing next week for 3 days every summer. And so it just worked out practically. It's perfect, So
Yeah, and for me, with the reason I chose Harvard is because I actually prefer to stay in a secular environment.
and it's online.
Yeah, it's online too for Catholic University, and for me, I just really enjoy being a representative of the Catholic faith in a secular environment. I like to study philosophy, talk about philosophy with non-Catholics, and really like the intellectual culture and the challenge of working with the professors and other students at Harvard. So for me, I feel much more comfortable in a secular environment. I think I would feel like I wasn't challenged very much to be in a Catholic school, in a Catholic program, whereas you're more comfortable in a Catholic
Well, it's not. I guess so. Yeah, but my whole growing up, I was always in secular environments, from being in public school and then all the way through Rutgers, and I just feel like I need time to just sit and just I don't know, just draw in, just draw in the Catholic thought and doctrine. I want to be just indoctrinated. I want to be taught. I want to just just soak it all in.
We've picked up stuff all through the years as far as Catholic doctrine. We've picked up so many things. We've never really had a chance just to sit and study the scriptures as Catholics. I do that in walk talks once in a while. I'll take up a topic and dig into scripture, and it's really amazing to me. Once the ball gets rolling and I start talking about a passage of scripture from a Catholic perspective, I just can't believe how it gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
So
and I start to feel like Protestantism is crazy. Like how can you even imagine that passage of scripture, teaches this Protestant idea? So I've always been frustrated by that, because I just wish I could go away for 6 months and just read the Bible as a Catholic and sort of, like St. Paul says, be transformed and just renew, and get all the old assumptions out of my head and see it all fresh. So yeah, I can see that. And for me, having a classical background from Rutgers, and just, I still consider, even though Rutgers is a secular university, I consider it to be my alma mater, where I became a Christian. It's just such a weird thing. I have so much sentimental, love for Rutgers and becoming a Christian. I still love the secular university, the diversity. I love the discussions and talking to people with all different backgrounds and having professors with different backgrounds. And I just love being the Catholic in the room. I love that challenge. And I love to, if I'm going to discuss things with people, I'd like to discuss them with people who actually believe those things. The discussions are just more real. They're sincere and they're emotional, and that's what I really love to do. So anyway, that's what's going on academically. We're both studying.
And then my other class, my second class is Christ in the Moral Life. It's a moral theology course. So that one's challenging. We're doing a really wonderful book by a man named William Madison III. He was a professor at Catholic University of America. And so we're learning about vices, virtues, graces. It's a very practical moral theology, and I had a midterm paper, and I had a lot of different topics to do. And my husband was very mean to me. He made me do St. Thomas Aquinas on prayer. So I've read a little bit of St. Thomas Aquinas here and there, but I didn't really understand how to go about reading him. And I was very confused when I read him, because I would read all the objectives and I would get so lost in that, where you took me and you forced me to learn this. You taught me how to study it, helped me lay out the paper, and then he forced me to write it after that. And then he helped me revise it and get it, So I had a by fire. How would you term that? Baptism by fire time with St. Thomas. So that was good for me, I think.
Yeah, and we'll spend a lot of time talking about St. Thomas. That's also a good segue for us to talk about another part of our life right now, which is lay Dominican life.
Right.
So We became lay Dominicans and were members of a chapter that met at St. Joseph's Seminary in Charlotte. And recently, after my mother's stroke, we were not able to attend on the Saturdays anymore. So we transferred our membership, or are in the midst of transferring our membership to a new and developing lay Dominican group at St. Matthew's Parish here in Charlotte, which is one of the largest parishes in the country. And that's been great too. So we'll share some of the things we learned about and talk about in our lay Dominican formation and meetings. There's so much rich stuff there. We'll talk about St. Thomas and Dominican tradition and education. We'll bring that into discussions. Our own academic work, our kids' experiences, our family experience as we continue to homeschool, and then the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. We'll talk about what's going on, how things are developing, how we see families making progress and getting along, and just how that continues to develop as we now move into a phase of our development where we're going to be accredited, developing grade level programs that make things simpler for many families, and then also develop a college program that we've always said we'll work on that. Even though it was approved in 2014, we've already had it approved. We said we'll get to that. If we can get the academy accredited, then we'll turn our attention to a college degree in classical Christian studies, and so we'll talk about the development of that. But we also get just tons of questions through the week from families, practical questions, questions about family life, homeschooling, parenting, lots of young families with young kids, toddlers, elementary school age kids, mothers, being mothers for the first time, having practical questions about parenting and child care and getting started with homeschooling. And then we've got all this technology developing that needs to be understood and made good use of. Just so many practical questions that we get through the weeks running the academy. And we just need a place, a clearinghouse, as it were, to just sort of get all this stuff out in the air and talk about it and work through it. And we haven't had that. We've got all these issues and all these questions, and sometimes the discussions are so good, and yet we don't share them with anybody, and there's lots of families who'd benefit from the discussion. So the purpose of this podcast is just going to be a place where we get together and we take questions, talk about issues in our own life, in the lives of families we work with, in the academy, in the church, outside the church, and so on. But we're going to, we're not just going to do the normal Catholic complaining about modern society. We're going to focus on classical studies and the insights that classical studies can give us. We're going to talk about the help that our lay Dominican life brings to these issues. Talk about married life, homeschooling, and keep it positive. We're not interested in complaining about things. We're not interested in all the political party fighting and all this useless nonsense. We're interested in developing positive solutions to these things and just minding our own business and trying to be successful in our work of teaching and parenting and even in our own relationships. So I'd like it to be something positive, something insightful, where we're bringing the fruits of our contemplation and study into these issues to actually recommend positive things we can do, ways we can fix these problems, avoid these problems, eliminate these problems, not just complain about what other people are doing, as if that's going to accomplish anything. So that's what I'd like to try to accomplish with these talks. And I've done walk talks for a couple of years, and they've been well received. We've had lots of feedback from walk talks, but I'd really like to get you involved in these talks so we can address them from both sides, from sort of the husband side, the father side, the wife side, the mother side, our different perspectives, our different interests, different personalities, different studies, different work we do during the week, working with different students, different parents, different subjects, things like that. So I think we could just, have some richer discussion. And then I'd like to, encourage parents and friends who listen to these talks to send in any questions, controversial issues that they struggle with. Not that we're going to offer any authoritative answers or anything like that, but it's good just to have someone start to think through them, think through it out loud. That's what I do in the walk talks. I just get the meditation, get the questioning, get the dialectic started so that we can then get into the issues in a creative and fresh way, not just copying and pasting what everyone else says, because it just gets so boring and there's no solutions. But to have some creative investigations into controversial issues, bring some new sources, not just quoting the same handful of boring, old, worn out sources that everyone quotes and that really never seem to make a difference, but get into some richer, deeper sources, ancient philosophy, scholastic theology, the church fathers, sacred scripture, and so on. So I'd like it to be a rich and refreshing, positive place where we talk about really controversial issues and we're not afraid to get into practical issues.
Yeah, I'd like to read some things together too.
Yeah.
If we read them, maybe I could read them and you can comment on them and things like that especially as we do our studies. And
yeah, so we'll get started this week, and we'll try to post every few days as topics come up and issues in our own studies and work arise. But that's going to be the purpose of the podcast, and I think it'll be helpful. Just as the walk talks have been helpful, they've been helpful but limited, and there's a lot more we can do. And we've invested in the equipment to do this together, and we're both at a place in life where we've got the opportunity and the energy to do it. So that's the plan, as I said, for what will be a classical Catholic education podcast, and we'll focus on all of the parts of that: classical studies, real classical studies, not shallow modern literature, things like that, but real classical studies, philosophy, the trivium and quadrivium, and get into these subjects in a way that's practical and useful, not like some. I always found homeschool conferences and private school conferences to just be so shallow and really not edifying. I'd like to get into them in a deeper and more practical way to really help people understand and appreciate the value of classical studies, which I don't think happens in the homeschool and private school circles. So to get into classical studies, to get into Catholic studies from a Dominican perspective, with all of our Dominican formation and resources that we have access to, plus our own practical experience as both Protestants and Catholics, raising kids in the church, going through all of that as first-generation Catholics, where we don't have Catholic family members, we don't have established Catholic traditions or routines or any sort of culture. We've had to develop what we have on our own, and I know there are many other families that have to do the same thing. They're the first Catholics in their family, and it's rough. It's very difficult, and I'd like to offer some encouragement and some advice from experience, in those areas, with dealing with very difficult issues like dealing with non-Catholic family and relationships and all that mess. I'd like to be very practical with that. And then education, just getting into all of the challenges and problems of education in modern society, wanting to give our kids a faithful Christian classical education, but at the same time, we live in a country with compulsory education standards. We've got to satisfy grade level requirements. We've got to get kids through high school studies into college and career. Lots of controversial issues, lots of challenging practical issues, and I'd really like to flesh through all those things and deal with them practically and realistically, not in ideal situations where nobody really needs any help when things are great, but when things are not so great. Those are the challenging issues. That's where the advice really becomes valuable, and I'd like to get into those issues, open those issues up, and try to make something, like I said, positive and helpful. So that's the goal for this podcast. We'll try to meet a couple times a week, or more often as topics arise. We're going to be busy running around. We've got, with our studies, we've actually got to do work on campus. Next week we'll be in Washington, D.C. at Catholic University for my wife's on-campus activity. We'll be back and forth to Harvard and, on the different campuses, and we'll try to bring the stuff with us and share things from where we're at. But I think we've got a lot of resources, a lot of material to share, and as my wife said, to even do some reading and studies during these meetings, reading some things that aren't commonly read today, talking about things. I know I would especially like to get into classical philosophy and literature, get into Dominican theology, share some of your stuff, especially moral theology and catechetics, what's helpful to parents. So it's going to be an eclectic collection of things we talk about and get into, but that's going to be the purpose of this podcast, and we're hoping that this becomes a source of support and community in a sense, just that we can be like-minded, at least in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, where we share some goals and share a mission and a vision of Christian culture and family life, to allow these talks to be a place where we can develop that like-mindedness, discuss issues together, hash through controversial topics together, and deal with that so that we can just get to work and study and teach our kids and collaborate in homeschooling and helping our kids get off to college and career and have success. Before we wrap up, this will just be a short first talk just to introduce things. But before we wrap up, why don't we just talk about where our kids are at right now, so anyone listening can compare and see where we've got some things that are similar, that are different, where our current circumstances and experience overlap, and see the sort of practical issues that we can get into. Right now, as I said before, our oldest child, Jonathan, and our work in education started when Jonathan was born, and our goal was to get a program developed by the time he was school age. And the Classical Liberal Arts Academy opened in 2008, and it was, it's not coincidental that Jonathan was 8 years old and he was getting started with his studies. So that's always been the focus of our educational work, and he's 24 years old now. He just graduated from UNC Charlotte as an ROTC cadet with a degree in criminal justice, did a good job with his studies and with all his ROTC responsibilities, was very successful with his military preparation, and is now at officer training school out at Fort Sill in Oklahoma. So he's doing well. Our oldest daughter, Elizabeth, is in her senior year, and she's an amazing student. She just finished an internship in Washington, D.C., where as a political science major, she got to spend a whole semester there. She just took an aviation test in the military and passed that, so she qualifies for aviation careers, and she's just an amazing individual, our eldest daughter, Elizabeth, and we'll talk about her quite a bit because, the kids differ so much from one to the next, and she's just an extraordinary example of self-motivated, intelligent, hardworking, generous individual who's probably going to do amazing things. So she's entering her senior year. Then we've got David, who's also in college, getting started. He's in the Army Reserves, but he's studying business. So he's, again, very different from the others, choosing not to go the military route, but to get into business studies. He's at UNC Wilmington, which is on the shore here in North Carolina. Then our daughter Mary is 19, and she's sort of discerning and trying to figure out what she wants to do, wrestling with all those practical questions. She's not an intellectual. She's not interested in military careers or intellectual pursuits like her older sister. She's got all her own unique interests and personality distinctive. So it's interesting to see her develop. And then Samuel just took his ASVAB test today and qualified for his military careers, and he'll be going to basic training this summer probably and getting started with college and probably next spring, I guess, he'd get started. And then, from Jacob on down, we've all the kids are home and they're still homeschooling. So all of those kids, they provide us with sort of case studies to talk about as we get into these discussions. And if you're listening and you've got kids, throughout that spectrum, finished with school, in college, out of college, getting ready for college, homeschooling, getting ready for homeschooling, I'd like to talk about the kids, not with names and details of their private lives, but just as sort of personas that we can look at as examples, and look at different kids in different situations and see what their troubles are, what they're struggling with, what they need help with, what problems they face in their lives, and how we can help them. Because that's been the biggest challenge for us, is just dealing with all the different kids, and then for you, Dania, to get into elementary type stuff, and things that mothers struggle with. And if you were just gonna name two or three things maybe that you would say young mothers, recently married Catholic women getting started with homeschooling, what would be a couple of issues that you would say, major issues that come up in support discussions in the academy with families that we'll try to focus on? What are some key issues that you've seen as areas where mothers especially have expressed a real need for help in this generation?
Well, first of all, I think would be the toddlers, managing toddlers while you have other kids that are studying. So how to occupy toddlers, how to help them to get ready for school while you have other children who are currently studying, and then managing babies in that too. How to manage schedules with all the different age groups and things like that. That's one of the biggest things. And then discipline. A lot of moms are having trouble with discipline of young children, and not sure how. The kids just act like crazy kids outside of the house, and they're not sure how to manage that and how to train them so we can share things that we learned, things that we did well, things like that, things that we learned how we manage the toddlers,
And things we didn't do well.
things we didn't do well.
We've got lots of bad lessons too that we've learned.
This is true. Yeah, so we have both ways. We have good things and bad things we can share with you, what not to do and what to do. So things like that. Those are some of the main concerns: how to manage the schedule, how to manage the day. Other things.
Well, just homeschooling in general.
Homeschooling in general.
The curriculum,
Teaching, reading, especially moms.
satisfying requirements, just managing all that mess, not having teaching experience,
Right.
just the practical day-to-day management of student work, figuring things
Right.
like that.
And a
out.
lot of kids, like young children that are refusing to do schoolwork. A lot of moms talk about that. Kids that are just like planting their heels and not going along with studies. Things like that are also on the radar too.
Yeah, so we'll keep things practical, and we're served with these issues daily through our work in the academy. So there'll be plenty of practical issues to talk about. And again, if there are any issues that anyone listening would like to talk about, think through, hash through together, just contact us anytime. You can send any messages, any questions or topic suggestions to mail@classicalliberalarts.com, and we'll get right on them, just like I do with the Walk Talks. I take emails and chats through the week from men and women listening to the Walk Talks, and those of you who listen to those talks know that I get on those topic suggestions pretty quickly, and that's really what makes those talks so much fun, is that it's like an ongoing conversation. That's really what the Walk Talks were intended to be, as if we were just walking and talking together. So the same thing with this. We'll just respond to questions and topics that arise through support and through contacts, and also with our own activities and studies. We'll share things that come up, things we learned, things we find interesting, and just try to make these talks as practically helpful, positive, encouraging, and useful as possible. So that's the goal here for Classical Catholic Education Podcast. I think we can promise some rich content that you're not going to find in other places, that's challenging and insightful. I would say refreshing, because it's different and new, offers hope when you've just got the same information always being fed to you, and you know that the answers are not in that information, you just wish there was something better, something richer, deeper, more profound. I think we can provide a lot of that content from the Academy resources we have and our own Dominican formation. So we'll try to post talks a couple times a week, responding to suggestions, also addressing issues that we're interested in. Over time, we'll engage in some book studies, read and discuss things together. That'll be helpful. And just sort of respond as interest and the discussion develops over time. So we'll call that a wrap for our first meeting here for this Classical Catholic Education podcast. And in our next talk, we'll just dig in and get into classical education and homeschooling, deal with some groundwork issues, and I'm sure questions and topics will start to come in, so we'll respond to them there. So on behalf of my wife and I and the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we hope that you join us to listen to these talks. We'll work hard to make them valuable, and we look forward to your feedback and participation in the discussion. But keep an eye out on the Academy YouTube channel, also on the Classical Liberal Arts Academy website. If you go to classicalliberarts.com/videos, you'll find the latest talks always available in one place, which is a convenient way to find them. And if you subscribe to the newsletter on the Academy website, all of the shows we do will be shared in the daily news that's sent to all the subscribers. So just a couple of simple things you can do to stay on track with us and keep an eye on new shows. So again, the YouTube channel, the videos page on the Academy website, and then the daily newsletter, which will be helpful. So we look forward to getting into these discussions and stirring things up a bit, not in a wrangling or annoying way, but in an edifying way. So thanks for joining us, and we look forward to getting started with these discussions next week. God bless you all.